Hello, in this lecture we will talk about creating and using a class. Object-oriented programming is one of the most effective approaches to writing software. In object-oriented programming, you write classes that represent real-world things and situations, and you create objects based on these classes. When you write a class, you define the general behavior that a whole category of objects can have. And when you create individual objects from the class, each object is automatically equipped with the general behavior, and you can then give each object whatever unique traits you desire. And making an object from a class is called instantiation, and you work with instances of a class. You can also specify the kind of information that can be stored in instance. So let's see how to create a class. So let's start by writing a simple class, dog, that represents a dog, not one dog in particular, but any dog. So they all have a name and age attribute. We also know that most dogs can sit and roll over. So those two pieces of information, name and age, and those two behaviors, sit and roll over, will go in our dog class because they are common to most dogs. After our class is written, we will use it to make individual instances, each of which represents one specific dog. So this code are creation of a class called dog. No parameter inside the parentheses because we make a class new from scratch off. So inside the class, similar as a function, but not the same. Inside class we have all are functions actually. Here has a default initial RNIT, but double underscore in front and double underscore back. Here has the self, name, age, 3 parameters. So self, you always have self. Name and age are parameters. When you create this dog, you have to import. You do not need to import the self because this is the format of the Python class. So always you need a self. And inside this function called initial, and there are two statements that actually assign the name value from the user input to this name attribute. So initialize name and age attributes. So for this function, and these two are the two methods. Actually two functions. Two methods. One is sit self. So here also has a doc string for description of what this method does. And in this method is actually very easy currently. Just print self name. Name is this attribute, name's title form. So let's print this dog is now sitting, and roll over is the same. Print this dog is rolled over. So by convention, capitalize the name refer to classes in Python. So we see in previous page, when we create a class, use capitalized for this class name. But a function use lowercase usually. Function use lowercase, sit, roll over, initial. And the parentheses in the class definition are empty because we are creating this class from scratch. And the initial method, int method, a function that's part of a class is a method. So everything you learned about the functions apply to methods as well. The init method is a special method Python runs automatically whenever we create a new instance based on the dog class. This method has two leading underscores and two trailing underscores. So we define the init method to have 3 parameters, self, name, and age. The self parameter is required in the method definition, and it must come first before the other parameters. it must be included in the definition, because when Python calls this int method later to create an instance of dog, so when we create an instance of dog, we will show later, the int method will be loaded automatically. So the method call will automatically pass the self argument. And every method call associated with a class automatically passes self. So method actually is used for the object self, so which is a reference to the instance itself. It gives the individual instance access to the attributes and the methods in the class. So when we create an instance of the object, so this instance has attributes like age and a name, and has methods like sit and roll over. When we make an instance of dog, Python will call the initial method from the dog class. We will pass dog a name and age as arguments. So self is passed automatically, so we don't need to pass it. Whenever we want to make an instance from the dog class, we will provide the values for only the last two parameters, name and age. So the two variables defined each have the prefix self. We see each have the prefix self. So whose name? Self's name, like self's age. Okay, so and we will be able to access these variables through any instance created from the class. So self name's name takes the value stored in the parameter name and stores it in the variable name. So this name is actually the user input when create an instance of class dog, and this statement is assign this value to the attribute name. This is actually an attribute of this dog, and this when attached to the instance being created. So variables that are accessible through instances like this are called attributes. And the dog class has two other methods defined, sit and roll over. Because these methods don't need additional information like a name or age, we just define them to have one parameter self. They will be able to sit and roll over. For now, sit and roll over don't do much. They simply print a message saying the dog is sitting or rolling over. And making an instance from a class. The class dog is a set of instructions that tells Python how to make an individual instance representing specific dogs. So let's make an instance representing a specific dog. So we can write my dog is the class name, and the parentheses Willie and 6. So this is input for the name and age. So we tell Python to create a dog whose name is Willie and whose age is 6. When Python reads this line, it calls the initial method in dog with the arguments while Willie and 6. Initial method creates an instance representing this particular dog and sets the name and age attributes in the values we provided. So the instance is stored in variable myDog. So myDog is an instance of class dog with the user input information. And how to access the attributes. To access the attributes of an instance, you have created an instance. To access the attributes, you use dot notation. So we can get the name and age of my dog. For example, we can get the name of my dog. My dog is an instance we have created. Dot name, then get the value of the name. Then is a title form. So we can print my dog's name is which name? My dog's age. My dog is age. How old? For the age value. Dot notation. Then string to transform to the string type. For example, 6 years old. And calling methods, we can also use dot notation to call any method defined in dog. So let's make our dog sit and roll over. We can use instance.sit and instance.rollover. both. You can use the dot notation for get attribute, and you can use dot notation for methods. But here methods need parentheses because some methods may need additional parameters, but attributes do not need parentheses itself. We will show all these statements in another file that we move to file. Open this file, section 8 classes py source file, then and move to the lecture. Actually, this is the first lecture of this section called creating and using a class. And then we create this class dog with initial method, sit method, initial function, sit method, and a rollover method. Initial method assign two value to two attributes, name and age. Run this. It's okay. Then we make an instance from class. We create two instances called my dog and your dog. Then we print and get attributes of this instance. My dog's name, age, and your dog's will run. So print the name and age of my dog and your dog. And we can call in methods to sit and roll over. My dog, sit and roll over. So really it's not sitting, it's a roll over. And your dog, sit roll over, dot notation with the methods. And your dog is Lucy is not sitting and Lucy is over.